everywhere she raced. Bred at David and Joanne Hayden's Dark Hollow Farm, Safely Kept contested her entire 2-year-old campaign in her home state, winning 3 to 5 starts, including 2 stakes in 1988. Owned by Barry Weisford in partnership with Richard Santucci's JFB stable and trained by Alan Golden, Safely Kept was dominant as a 3-year-old in 1989, winning 8 of 9 starts and garnering the Eclipse Award for Outstanding Sprinter. Among the Bay Fillies wins that year were the Grade 1 Test Stakes and Grade 2 scores in the Genuine Risk Handicap and Prior Stakes. Her only setback was the second-place effort to Dancing Spree in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. At 4, Safely Kept was once again among the sports elite, posting 8 wins in 10 starts, including 7 stakes wins, and capped off a remarkable season with a victory in the 1990 Breeders' Cup Sprint. That win of a black tie affair at Desure also avenged her only loss from the prior year, as she finished 9.5 lengths in front of Dancing Spree. Safely Kept had another triumphant campaign at age 5. For the 3rd consecutive year, she won the Genuine Risk Handicap, Maryland Million Distaff Handicap, and the Garden Stakes Handicap. She also won her 2nd Meadowlands Handicap and added the Chicago Handicap. Safely Kept concluded her career with 24 wins and 31 starts and earnings of almost $2.2 million, more than any other filly or mare bred in Maryland. She won races across the country at a total of 10 tracks.
And no, your eyes did not deceive you. That was a mullet that Barry Weisford was sporting. And not only that, it was a permed mullet. But fast horses never go out of style, and to accept the Hall of Fame plaque for Safely Kept. Very cool.
I'm honored to stand here today in front of the voters, the Hall of Fame members, my fellow honorees, and family, my partner in Safely Kept, Rich Santulli, to accept this award on behalf of this great race mare, her trainer Alan Goldberg, groom Janet Maloney, and exercise rider Gail Moore. It occurred to me as I was preparing my remarks that in this day and age, most other owners who have the honor of seeing one of their horses inducted into the Hall of Fame come from other walks of life. They have a real day job. I might be unique among them in the horse industry that this is my day job. I've been lucky to make racing my whole career. This once-in-a-lifetime experience that Rich and Al and I shared campaigning Safely Kept was an experience that changed our lives. Today is not only about honoring Safely Kept, but is a celebration of this unplanned and incredibly fortuitous life I've had in our industry. My last 40 years, as Bob Dylan sang, have experienced some simple twists of fate, which led to lifelong friendships, partnerships, all connected to the horse industry. When I came back from my first semester at college at Purdue, having figured out that the Midwest in 1968 was too much of a culture shock for an East Coast hippie, I enrolled at the University of Pennsylvania. I looked up my high school friend Dave Levin, who played poker with a bunch of guys who, like me, enjoyed the races. Another high school acquaintance was a good friend of Dave's who went to Drexel. His name was Alan Goldberg, known to Alzy by all his friends. We all started going racing together. Today, my college poker game and racetrack buddies have come to celebrate with me. In the spring of 1972, I heard you could actually walk hots at the racetrack, get paid a few dollars to bet with, get a free pass to get in the races. And so I took a job that spring at Garden State Racetrack and really enjoyed it. That summer I talked Al into going to Aqueduct with the idea that we'd walk some hots and then go off to a real job, parking cars at the casino in Lake Tahoe. We went to Aqueduct and started at Barn 14 and started to ask for a job. As we walked our way down, we got to Barn 5 and had no luck. And what we didn't realize, but was explained to us, that at that time, a lot of the help had their kids getting out of school the next week, and all the low-level jobs would be taken by the kids of the people already employed. So at Barn 5, we came up with a novel idea. We're going to change our tactics. We're going to ask if someone will hire us for free. So we walked into Barn 5, and the trainer said, "I can't use you," but Lefty Nickerson said, "For free, I can walk you across the way, and there's an Irishman there that when he hears free, I think I can get you hooked up. So we walked across the way, and he introduced us to Walter Kelly. He said, "What's your names?" "White Sport and Goldberg." "Two Jewish boys?" I said, "Yeah." "You guys go to college?" "Yeah." "And your fathers are spending good money? Send you to college?" "Yeah." "And you want to come here and shovel shit for free?" He said, "This is the most money I ever made in my life was being around smart Jewish people. So I just want to get your dad on the phone so I can talk to a really dumb one." I called my dad. My dad said, "They're good boys. They'll do what they say they'll do." He hired us. He gave us $75 a week. Most importantly, he became the first in a long line of people who illuminated for us the beauty, the tradition, the love of the horse that is the sport of thoroughbred racing. Mr. Kelly led us to Alan Durkin's, and what I learned today was my year of walking hats in 1973, just to set the record straight, had nothing to do with this Eclipse Award. Alan led us to Mrs. DuPont, who appointed our first mayor, and to Joe Hickey, who sold us our first stallion share. These are some of the first people we met in the thoroughbred world, but some of the greatest people I've ever encountered in life. Al and I went out on our own in 1974, and a real trivia question is, the horses actually ran in my name for the first few years. In the late 70s, I became interested in bloodstock and in the business, while Al trained the horses. Through family friends, I was introduced to D. Hubbard, who with a group of his friends gave us $1 million to go to the Keeneland sale in 1978. He was an invaluable mentor for many, many years. Through that association, I was introduced to Johnny Jones Jr., who took me under his wing. In the stallion business, and to Bob Masterson, who everyone knows as Pat, who remains a cherished friend and partner, and has been so supportive to Al and to myself. In the early 80s, I had an idea to sell stallion seasons and shares at auction. I partnered with Johnny Jones III, and Matchmaker was born. That staff included Charlie Bowden, Bernie Sams, and Harry Herbert, all of whom have gone on to do amazing things in the horse business. Holly Vanderhoff came to work for me in 1983. Craig followed soon after. They built an amazing business at Denali in Lexington. I'm so proud of them all. Ron Atkins joined our team in the mid-80s, and he now manages Rich's and my finances, which is not an easy task. David Hayden did the advertising for Matchmaker. He introduced us to Frank DeFrancis, who gave me my start in race design, which led to the Pimlico Special, which led to the start of the HRS, but I'm jumping slightly ahead. In June of 1988, David said he and Joanne had a homebred filly that could really run. I gave him $100 to bet on her. She got beat. A few weeks later, he called and said, "You want to bet her back?" I said, "Sure." She won by 6.5. A few weeks later, she won by 7.5. David, of course, being the proud owner and breeder, you know he's never too shy to talk about his horses, called to discuss the race. I said, "I'm not going to price your horse, but if you get an offer to sell her, I'd love to write a first refusal." The next week, he said Betty Perkins offered him $300,000. And so I was up in Saratoga, and I went down to Maryland to watch her train. Called up and said, "She's an Amazon. I can't believe she can sprint like this. She'll be a monster when she gets to go long." That was supposed to be a real funny one. I decided I'd buy her with a few friends. I called Dee and Bat, and not once before or once after have they ever said no to a deal. That day they said no. I called Rich Santulli, who was just an acquaintance at the time. And neither one of us could really remember why I called. But I did. He said, I'll take a leg. Dick Wynn, a friend from Philadelphia on horses, said he'd take a leg. But I was busy gambling at the races that day and never got to the fourth leg sold. So at the end of the day, I called Rich back and said, "Let's take a third." He said, "Great." I called Dick Wynn. He said, "I only want a quarter." I said, "Okay." And so I was 42%, Rich had 33%, Dick Wynn had 25%. We ran her twice with Carlos Garcia. She went off the first time, got beat in her last start as a 2-year-old in a race that actually opened mine, ran second. Stake in Maryland. We gave her some R&R, sent her down Alzia Hialeah. And I remember the day call in February the next year saying we just sent her 3/8 of a mile. And I thought she'd go in about 37. My watch said 34. I think she's a freak. The Safely Kept Party started on April 9, 1989. And for the next 3 years, every 3 or 4 weeks, we traveled from track to track, watching her win, picking up trophies, and enjoying each other's company. She came up to Saratoga undefeated as a 3-year-old, having won 5 in a row. The week of the test, Wayne Lucas offered us $800,000 for it. Dick Wynn says we have to sell. Well, I have a very strong partner, Mr. Santulli. I said, what do you think? I said, well, there's some big races coming up. I think she's really good. He said, well, let's just buy him out. So we leveled ourselves out at 50-50 and owned her for the test date later on that week for our first Grade 1 win. It was the most amazing 3-year run, going to big races. And when we didn't do something stupid like try to rate her or send her along, we consistently came away with the win. She won 20 races in a row, 19 states, running against her same sex in sprinting. The experience changed all of our lives. Rich and Al got to know each other. They've been together ever since. She trained at a training center in New Jersey owned by the Scavolas, where Al kept a few horses because he loved the circus. Rich bought the training center. And now Al's private for Rich and still trains for Bat 9. Nobody could be a better partner than Rich Santulli. I said this wasn't going to happen. Generous, genuine, genius of a human being. A lot of people can be great when you win. Rich is great no matter how the chips fall. It has been one of the great privileges of my life to have counsel whenever I needed it. We're only 6 years apart, but I've always considered him to be the smarter, successful older brother everybody would like to have. Rich and Peggy moved to our area of the Jersey Shore. We've expanded from racehorses and mares into stallion shares, trackers, sharing our passion for industry initiatives, and serving on boards together. Safely Kept experience for me was about this great mare, but about the people that were around this great mare, and the tremendous longevity that we've all shared together. Al and I have now been together 40 years, Rich and I approaching 30, but back to the rest of the story. Frank DeFrancis led to the Pimlico Special, which led to the HRS, which led to the next big addition in my life, my publishing partner Sue Finley, who I claimed from the broadcast partner ABC and Kirk County in 1992. Together we launched the TDN the following year. I love sharing the responsibility of informing and entertaining our world with Sue because no one could be a better custodian of that responsibility of informing those who love our business as much as we do, with Sue and my staff at TDN. Another fateful moment occurred 16 years ago at ABC Hospitality at the Preakness. I was sitting next to a guy for 2 days. We were chatting about the races. Who do you like in this race? Who do you like in that race? And at the end of the second day, the Preakness had been run. I said, oh, by the way, my name's Barry. He said, oh, my name's Bobby. What do you do? I said, well, I'm kind of in the horse business. What do you do? I got a restaurant in New York. He said, well, I'm really kind of interested in the horse business. Would you mind coming up to New York and have dinner with me one night? And so I'm so proud that my best friend has been our keynote speaker today. Saratoga and racing also delivered, left my now. I've taken such pride in helping him develop his love of racing and turning that into a love of the racing business. Saratoga racing has also delivered to me my most important and faithful moment of my life. 8 years ago, Bobby and I were walking around downtown and had the amazing fortune of running into the greatest woman I know, Sarah Nelson. Not only my wife, but the mother of the next big racing fan, my daughter Juliet. Even though I dropped out of college to fellowship with Mr. Kelly, and I'm sure it wasn't, in my parents' eyes, the best decision I ever made, they've been nothing but supportive to Al and myself in our racing endeavors, even helping us out at Matchmaker and always going to the races, rooting on our runners. I'm so pleased they could be here today. I'm sure that many of you know I had the pleasure to raise 2 of the most avid racing fans anyone has ever met, my sons Bradley and Joshua, whose introduction to racing was through Safely Kept. I'm particularly proud that Brad has chosen to make his living in the horse industry and is defining his own career path in doing so. Racing isn't just my work, it's my hobby, it's the consuming nature of my existence. My friends enjoy the races, my kids enjoy the races, I do my business at the races, and fortunately I've been able to make a living in the horse business. This business has given me an amazing life. I never had to create a resume. So to all of you that make this industry so great, to Rich and Al, to Sarah, Josh, and Brad, and Juliet, and most of all to Safely Kept, I thank you for everything and mostly for the chance to share this wonderful life with you. This day is about celebrating these special relationships, partnerships, and twists of fate that brought us all together and find us here, still together, enjoying racing after all these years. Thank you.